Swaddling is not recommended. If you decide to swaddle, the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends that you discontinue swaddling once an infant reaches 2 months of age or sooner if showing signs of rolling. Licensing recommends that you stop swaddling once an infant becomes mobile. So once they become mobile, showing signs of rolling, then you need to discontinue the swaddling. And you might be wondering why swaddling is not recommended. Well, there's many reasons. One would be suffocation. And the reason with that is because the infant's arms are confined. If they were to roll over while they were swaddled, they would not have their arms available to help push their face or their head out of the way of hazard. So that is one of the reasons. The other reason would be overheating. Whenever we're swaddled, our body temperature can raise to a higher temperature. And compounded, if you had them with a heavier blanket, their body temperature could even reach higher, which could cause them to overheat. So that's another reason. Another reason that they found is it can restrict breathing. Some studies have shown when an infant was tightly swaddled, their lungs aren't able to expand like they should, and they're not able to get enough air in. So they might be taking shallow breaths instead of big, deep breaths. So therefore that could restrict their breathing. The other reason that they found with studies is that when an infant's swaddled, they actually are less arousable. So they're actually put in a deeper sleep. When they don't have their arms available to them, they're not able to initiate their own startle reflex, which is something that they have as a safeguard to help protect them. So if their arms are confined, they're not able to do that. And then the last reason would be the hip dysplasia. And what happens is that when an infant is inside their mommy, their hips fall out naturally or in a little package like a frog. They're not made to go perfectly straight. So when you put them in a pencil-like position, such as swaddling, and it's very tight, then that puts too much pressure on their hips that could actually damage their hip placement. So that's something why we do not want them to be swaddled in such a pencil-like position. If you do allow swaddling, things to think about for swaddling. For one, make sure that it is only up to the shoulders. You do not want to have extra material around the infant's face because that potentially could get in their way of their breathing or get around their neck. So only shoulder high. The other thing I think about is how tight is it. You want to make sure that you can get a hand just in between their chest and the blanket so that you know that it's not too tight. The other thing I think about is obviously the type of blanket, so making sure it's a thin blanket so they do not become overheated. The other thing to think about is that it is not tight around their hips so that their hips aren't confined in such a pencil-like position. I get this question a lot. What if I do have them swaddled, Sarah, while I'm preparing them to sleep? So say they like to be swaddled and you have them swaddled, they fall asleep, and then you want to place them in the crib or the pack and play. So if an infant were to fall asleep in a swaddled position, you could place them in the pack and play or in their crib. You would need to unwrap this completely, the blanket. And you would need to remove the blanket because the loose blanket cannot be left underneath the infant while they're sleeping. So I would need to remove this blanket. And if you did decide that you still would allow the blanket, if that's something that the parents wish you to do, then you could place it correctly by only placing it nipple high, having the arms above, and tucking it in on the 3 sides.